Are you planning a move to Newport News, Virginia, but you don't know the area very well? Well, then you came to the right place. My name is David Tortellini. I'm with eXp Realty, and today we're going to do a map tour of Newport News, help you get familiar with the geography, where everything is, and kind of what you should expect if you plan to make a move to the area. Stick around and we'll get right to it. Alrighty, well, let's start by talking about where Newport News is in Virginia. So, really down here in the southeastern corner, and this region is known as Hampton Roads. And Newport News itself is on what we call the peninsula. So there's the peninsula, the middle peninsula, and the upper peninsula, and each become less densely populated as you go up. So we have Newport News, along with Hampton, small city of Poquoson, York County, and Williamsburg, James City County. So let's just dive right into Newport News. One of the great things about this town is it's really easy to navigate. There's really only a few roads you really need to understand how to get around on, and you'll be able to get up and down the entire city. So you can see it's kind of a long, thin city that covers the coast along the James River. And let's start with the main highways. So you really have 64, which runs from Virginia Beach, really all the way to St. Louis, Missouri, but really comes straight up the peninsula, up through Williamsburg. And you have a little break off here of 664. So it starts in Hampton, actually, and then comes over down here at the shipyard. So when you're talking about getting to the two major employers in Newport News, you have the Newport News Shipyard down at the bottom corner, and you have Fort Eustis, which is up in the northwestern corner of Newport News. And then much past that gets you into James City County. So really we'll be talking about Fort Eustis down to the shipyard and everything in between. So really when you're traveling through Newport News, if you're on the highway, you're going to be on 64 and you'll be getting off there accordingly. And then if you are jumping on 664 to get down to the shipyard specifically, you can do that as well. Now, if you are living in Newport News and you want to travel to the south side, so we call the Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake area the south side. You would take 64 to get to Virginia Beach, 64 to 264, and to get to Norfolk, that's usually how you go as well. And then you would get on 664 to head over to Suffolk or Chesapeake or Portsmouth. And the other thing you need to know about is the James River Bridge, and that's right here. And that will take you to Carrollton, Smithfield, really what we call Isle of Wight County. So Isle of Wight County is over here, and that's the James River Bridge. Now, if you are living in Newport News, but working down in Virginia Beach, and you are traveling on 64 regularly, just know that it gets backed up with traffic really bad very regularly, almost every day. It's currently under construction to be widened, but that's not going to be done until late 2025 at the earliest. And my understanding is they're already running well behind. So we're probably looking more like 2026. So it's very regular to see backups of several miles in each direction. So if you are living in Newport News, but working in Virginia Beach or Norfolk or vice versa, just know you are going to be sitting in a lot of traffic. Now, the 664 tunnel, this doesn't get quite as much traffic, really not nearly as much, since Suffolk's about 85,000 people and Virginia Beach is about 450,000 people. So it's not quite as traffic, but you can still find 30-minute backups on a fairly regular basis here. And then James River Bridge, usually there's no traffic. It is a drawbridge though. So if it doesn't get opened, you could be sitting for 10 or 15 minutes while a ship goes through there. So that's the only time you'll have traffic there. And they announce those so you can schedule your travel over that bridge accordingly. But all right, so let's get into those are the highways, 64, 664. And then there are really just two main drags that you need to know about that are kind of surface level. So we have what we call Jefferson Ave, and that's right here. That's 143. So you can see it kind of comes down here and this is it. It changes into 17 for a little bit, and then that'll take you all the way down to the shipyard. So this really actually runs all the way to Williamsburg. And then we have Warwick, and that's this right here, or Route 60. Same thing. You can take that all the way to Williamsburg if you'd like. And that runs, they really run parallel to each other. Um, and what you'll find as a difference is, so Jefferson is where Jefferson is basically a giant strip mall. I mean, it is plaza after plaza after plaza that are filled with shops, restaurants, um, uh, business offices, and it's pretty much the whole way too. I mean, it doesn't end. So you're really looking at this Jefferson really being the main um, retail street in Newport News, but it is also the main way that most people are going to get just about anywhere. So if you can learn how to get up and down Jefferson and what's off of it, you're going to learn, you'll learn 80% of the city right away. And then you have Warwick, which very similar. It doesn't have quite the big retail plazas attached to it that Jefferson does, but it does have a good deal. But this Warwick gives you access to more of the residential areas in Newport News, because most of the residential neighborhoods in Newport News for homes that people own are kind of in, you know, kind of west of Jefferson. So they're kind of between Jefferson and the James River. So really, if you can figure out how to get up and down those two things and know what's off of each one, you're going to be able to get around the city very, very well. So now you really won't have any more problems. Running from east to west, we then also have Fort Eustis Boulevard, Denbigh Boulevard, and you're going to have places like Victory right here. So that'll take you out all the way to Pocosin. And then we have a little bit of Mercury Boulevard, which will take you out to all the things Hampton, and it'll take you down the James River Bridge. So if you're coming into Newport News this way and you keep going, it'll take you across, and that's how you would get over to Langley Air Force Base. So when it comes to the waterfronts on the city too, so obviously the James River is our big major river here, and then we have the Warwick River here that runs up through Denbigh. And Newport News does have 22 miles of waterfront, but only about 2 miles of it is accessible to the public. And really, it's a lot less than that you can actually do something on. Hopefully, that'll grow soon as they figure out what's happening with this little piece of land right here. That should be reverting back to the public soon. But so there's waterfront residential pretty much all through here until you get down to the shipyard, and then the shipyard pretty much owns all of this. So if you are a waterfront buyer, you really can be anywhere along here. You're going to be looking at $1 to $2 million up through here, and then as you get to smaller water on the Warwick, it'll be a little less expensive. But then Fort Eustis owns all of this, so there's no residential anything out here. That's just all part of Fort Eustis and their space. Now, when it comes to being up and living in the Fort Eustis area, you do have a lot of residential up in this area. The homes there, there are a lot of like 90s types of builds out in this area, some smaller neighborhoods, and a lot of obviously like military live in that area. So you might find a neighborhood like Lee's Mill could be very, very popular. That's up right here, right near Fort Eustis Boulevard. And if you decide that if you're working at Fort Eustis and you end up deciding to live in York County over here, you'd be taking Fort Eustis Boulevard straight across over from Seaford or Grafton and going straight to base. And then, of course, there is a great, there are actually 2 golf courses here at Newport News Golf Course, and then Woodside High is a very popular high school. And people really like that one because they have a great music program. So I think they're a music magnet, and kids kids go there who love the music program. And then we have kind of this rich neck area here where there's mostly older housing. There's a really nice neighborhood in here called Colony Pines. That's very popular for our military families who are stationed at Fort Eustis. And those aren't particularly old. They're probably a lot of like 90s builds. Two-story, a lot of two-story homes, some single story as well, but very, very popular neighborhood. And then, but it is kind of surrounded by a lot more like 1960s brick ranchers, which I think if you had to define Newport News by one type of house, it would be the brick ranch style house. So you can live up here. There isn't a whole lot to do up this way, up outside of Fort Eustis. There's not a lot of shops and restaurants. Nothing really exciting happening up in this area in terms of fun things to do. So really that's all going to continue to happen as we get a little further down. Residential standpoint, this is an area that we call Denbigh. So you will hear that word thrown around a lot if you move to Newport News. So Denbigh, and there's no real true exact definition of where Denbigh begins and ends. I think a lot of people who have lived in Newport News for several generations refer to this whole area down to here as Denbigh. But I think more modern definition would maybe be kind of through here and then kind of down to maybe Colony. And we kind of call that Denbigh. And then we call this area down here Menchville. And that's because Menchville High School is right down here. Let me see if I can get down to it. Well, it's right here. So Menchville High School, BC Charles Elementary, there it is. Menchville High School is right here. And I think this area has really become known as Menchville. There is a neighborhood that's very popular down here called Denbigh Plantation. And so, of course, that Denbigh name is going to stick in the area regardless. So from a residential standpoint, down here, you're still looking at a lot of 1960s, 1970s type builds with some 80s and 90s kind of mixed in there. So there are going to be some homes that you might look at in this area that are newer. And if we're on, if you're on Warwick, you'll start to see that there's a little bit more going on in terms of kind of shops and restaurants. So this plaza right here has recently been updated, and it's a lot nicer than what it used to be. And Craft 60 was a great little bar that was located down the street, moved, opened up a great big place here. And then this whole area over here is slated, used to be a big Kmart, and now it's slated to become a new kind of retail center for the Denbigh area. And of course, if you follow that, you can see Eastwood and Colony, two very kind of popular roads here, will take you out to Bland, and Bland shoots you straight to the airport. So if you are flying in and out of Newport News Airport, you can you take Bland straight across. And before you get to the airport, that'll bring you to Home Depot and Lowe's, Walmart, Sam's Club, Kohl's, Kirkland's, Home Goods. One of the pet stores is in there. I think Petco is in that one. So there's a lot going on. When you start hitting this part of Jefferson, there's a whole lot going on. So we're starting getting those big box stores. Now you can see here on the airport, you have your two main runways here. That does mean that if you live out in this area, you just need to know there are going to be planes flying overhead, and there are going to be periods of your day where you might have to mute the television for 10 seconds, or if you're out for a walk, you're gonna just have to let people know that a plane is overhead, because they do come pretty often. So you will you do get some airplane traffic. And then it's kind of cool. Air Force One actually does a lot of touch and go practice at this airport. So if you live over here, you'll see Air Force One fly, I guess maybe about 500 or 600 yards overhead. It's pretty cool. And that will keep us kind of moving down through the city. And of course, Riverview Farm Park is down here in the corner. And this is a great playground. I have another video that's my 5 favorite outdoor places in Newport News. And of course, we do talk about Riverview Farm Park. And then up here where there's Newport News Park, we talk a lot about that too. And we'll get to some of the other places too. I'll show you where those are on the map. And then there's another major residential area here called Kiln Creek, and we have a bunch of videos on Kiln Creek because this is a really desirable neighborhood, and it does part of it is in York County, but the majority is actually in Newport News, and so this is a neighborhood that started being built in the early '90s and was finished out with in probably the early 2000s with kind of an extension neighborhood that was done. But big 5-mile loop around this neighborhood. I think it's 5,000 houses that are in Kiln Creek. So big part of the residential area here, and people like it because you can see we're moving down and it's really centrally located. So you can come and live in Newport News and you can get over to Langley Air Force Base really fast. You can get up to Fort Eustis fast. You can get down to the shipyard in 15 to 20 minutes. So you're starting to get to the point of the peninsula where you're very centrally located and easy to get to everywhere. And as we continue to work our way down, you are going to see, let's go down 60 a bit and we'll get down to Christopher Newport University. So CNU, one of the most beautiful campuses you'll ever see. Not a very old school, so we've seen a lot of development over the years. In fact, in the 12 years that I've lived in the area, I've seen just a massive building here at CNU, and they've bought up some of the area around the campus, and it's beautiful, and it's really become a hotspot for the area. But even before then, this area here, so you have we start off with Deep Creek, Hydenwood, and Riverside. These are some of the most desirable areas to live in Newport News. And I would say this is an area where you find a lot of the people, particularly in Riverside, who have family here for a couple of generations. It's the people who really tend to live here for a long time. They tend to end up in Riverside or the Hydenwood area. And the housing here is older. There's not a lot that's particularly new. There are a couple of newish neighborhoods here, but it's a lot of older housing, but it's just very established. A lot of lawyers and doctors all want to live in this area. Maybe they like being near CNU. There's a lot going on across campus now with great cafes and restaurants going in. James River Country Club is down here. So one of the premier golf courses in the area, right on the James River. So if you're looking for a country club to join, that is one of the older, more established country clubs. Kiln Creek that I mentioned earlier also is a golf course community. So that would also be a good golf country club to join if you're looking for something that probably skews a little younger, maybe. And but that also includes the Mariners Museum and Nolan Trail. So I wonder if I can get the trail itself to pop up on here. Let's do this. Let's play with this a little. Oh, there we go. All right. So all this green, this is the Nolan Trail, 5-mile hiking trail. And I do go over this in that other video I mentioned, but goes down to Museum Drive. And, this is called Lions Bridge, and just beautiful views of the James River here where then it's publicly accessible. But a bunch of hiking you can do throughout here, over and around. I think there's 14 bridges that take you over some of the water. Really just special, beautiful area. And then that'll bring you down further down to Hilton. So you have Hilton here, and then this area is called Brandon Heights, and then Rivermont down in this area. And we do have a video on Hilton in this greater area that we recently did. But this is an area that started being built in 1918 and 1919 as a war effort to provide housing for the shipyard. So World War One, they built these amazing homes, slate roofs, all sorts of fun stuff, and fun designs that you just will not get anymore. So really special, cool area. Definitely check out that video if you are into older housing. Then the adjacent neighborhoods were built more in like the 40s. Still very unique, very cool neighborhoods. And one of the other neat parts is that down here, this is where the elementary school is. So this is Hilton Elementary School. So the playground like overviews the river, and it's pretty special. The elementary school was built in 1918. So built it along with the neighborhood. All right. So that actually brings you all the way down to the James River Bridge and Mercury, or 258, but we just call it Mercury. And that's what brings you over to Hampton. I'm going to kind of come back up. So this was Kiln Creek, and this is 17. This really runs up through James City County. So if you end up living in James City County but work at the shipyard, you might end up taking 17 down and then catching Jefferson right here and taking Jefferson down to work. All righty. Now let's go over kind of what is in this area. So this is City Center. So City Center is really a big industrial park. And Ferguson really just built a new headquarters here. Their other headquarters is up near the airport. That's called HQ2. And this is, I don't know if they call it HQ3. I assume they do. But big, beautiful office park. But you have a fountain here in the middle with walking around it. And then you'll find shops and restaurants that surround it, along with, you can see the buildings up here filled with attorneys' offices and accountants, and the Langley building here. So that's Langley Federal Credit Union in there. And then really just every real estate company, every bank, every attorney, everybody's got an office in here. This is really the main kind of the main industrial area, or I should say the main office area for Newport News. And so you're going to find that there's a good chance you end up, if you're not at one of the major, if you're not military or you're not working at the shipyard, you'll probably end up working in here. Because then there's also housing in here. So there are apartments for rent, then there are a lot of condos, and then there are some single family kind of out on the outskirts a little bit, heading out back towards Jefferson. So you can really get a home and still live kind of right in city center and across the street. So this is Jefferson here, and across the street is what we call Port Warwick. And so Port Warwick is another live, play, work community where there's single family and duplex housing down here that are really neat. And then right here you have a bunch of restaurants, and Brickhouse Tavern is one of the more popular places in the city. Good pizza, great wings, and just fun atmosphere. This is just kind of a big courtyard where they'll hold concerts and things like that. And you'll have a place like Schlesinger's is probably the premier steakhouse in Newport News. There is a new one over here called Steak and Tonic. It's only been open a month or two, though, so I haven't been yet. But Schlesinger's is kind of the tried and true kind of higher end steakhouse, along with Finn's Seafood being the higher end seafood place in town. So there's like a tropical smoothie and stuff in there too. But then there are apartments and condos, and there's a lot of opportunity to live in there if you want to be able to walk to those sorts of things. Now, I'll back up for a second and say Newport News is not a walkable city. So like this city, you need a car unless you maybe live and work right in here. You're going to need a car to get around. Newport News is mostly a suburban city. So mostly single family homes, and then kind of apartment complexes up and down the main thoroughfares. So this is not an area where, you can get away without a car. You really do need one. And along that, so City Center has a couple of entrances, and this is 17 that runs up to York County. And then there's some nice older homes in this area too. So off of Harpersville. So Harpersville is a unique road that it runs this way. And then all of a sudden instead of staying going that way, it just takes a left, just a hard left, and goes up here and then loops back around. It's kind of weird. This should probably have a different name, but it doesn't. Some older homes, 1950s, 60s builds here. There is a newer neighborhood called Turtle Creek here. So if you're looking for the newer 2-story, and then Sandy Bottom Nature Park. If you're living in this part of Newport News, this could be the park that you go to. It is a Hampton park, but really beautiful. Tons of hiking trails and fun stuff to do over there too. As we kind of move down, Same thing goes down here. You're looking at like some smaller housing that bring you down into kind of the Sedgefield area. That's a lot of 1940s to 1960s kind of builds in here, um, and that's kind of across from Hilton. And then you get down to Mercury, and then the shipyard area. You kind of around the shipyard. There's a lot of really old housing. There's this Huntington Heights area is really beautiful. A lot of like really old, big houses. Um, that's a very special kind of place that you really have to want to live there to make it work, because a lot of those homes are really old and need massive renovations at this point. The ones that have been done are amazing. But if you want to live really close to the shipyard, and then we kind of have downtown Newport News, call them the numbered streets. Um, there are really good deals to be had down in this area, and there's you're going to want to do your research on deciding if this is a really good place for you. My understanding is back in the 70s, this was where everybody wanted to live, and people would just live here and walk straight to the shipyard, and it was amazing. But the area probably has its problems now, and you probably want to do your research to decide if going with some value down here is a really good fit for you. Um, but that is all of Newport News. Let me back up for a second, see if I missed anything. Yeah, so we've got, Fort Eustis up here with Newport News Park. I don't think I mentioned Newport News Park is the second largest municipal park east of the Mississippi. And if you look at where the other ones are, they're all in the ones that are bigger. They're in like Alaska and Texas. And so it really is, for a city of 185,000 people, to have something like that here is pretty darn special. And then, for my money, I find it hard to believe there are places that have a better kind of hiking trail than the Nolan Trail that surrounds the lake and the museum here. It's such a great experience, and it's so beautiful that to be in a city this big and to have those outdoor activities, I think is great. This green patch here is actually a cemetery, so that's not a park or anything. But yeah, I think if you learn how to get up and down Jefferson and up and down Warwick, and then you figure out what exits you need to get off on 64, you are pretty much going to know how to get everywhere. It is not that hard to navigate this city. It's really 5 streets and you can figure it all out. Do you want to live in Kiln Creek? Great. You need to know here, jump on the highway right here, get to work, go up to Fort Eustis. If you're stationed on the south side or you're working on the south side, um, honestly, I'd recommend living on the south side. So I would recommend, if you're looking at Newport News, because it's a little less expensive than living in, say, Virginia Beach, but you're working in Virginia Beach, just know you're going to hit a ton of traffic and you need to be prepared for that. And you have to decide if the value is there, because Newport News is significantly less expensive than Virginia Beach. It's less expensive than York County. It's about the same as Hampton, and it's less expensive than Williamsburg for sure. So um, overall, pretty good cost of living. There are good things to do in Newport News. The restaurant scene isn't incredible by any means. There are a few good restaurants, but you'll mostly, if you really want restaurants and things, you'll probably be traveling to Norfolk or to Williamsburg. City Center is a good place to work if you're going to be there. You could be at the new Ferguson building, or Riverside Medical Center is right here. That's probably the largest hospital in Newport News. That is where a lot of people are work. So if you're there, it's a really good location. It's easy to get to. Jefferson can get pretty trafficy, especially on like Friday afternoons. It's bumper to bumper and it's a bunch of stoplights, but it always moves. So I hear people complain about the traffic here. I think if you've lived in a really big city before, if you come from, DC or New York or Boston, you're going to be like, oh, there's no traffic here. But if you come from the country and this is the biggest place you've lived, you're going to feel like there's a lot of traffic. But we've got the airport here, not a lot of flights out of it anymore. Not like a Norfolk or Richmond. So if you do live in Newport News and you're hoping to use this airport on a regular basis, you will have to be flying to a few very specific areas. It really doesn't fly to a lot of really popular places anymore. We're hoping that it does in the near future, but you would probably end up going to Norfolk or Richmond to really make a lot of your flights. But yeah, then there's just a lot of opportunity here on the water. A lot of great things to do, great parks like Riverview Farm Park and Mariners Museum. Couple of cool other museums like the War Museum. Really, just it's a good area to be, and it is convenient to place to live if you're going to be stationed at Fort Eustis, the shipyard, or Langley Air Force Base. All right, guys, I think that's pretty much Newport news in a nutshell. Okay, well, I hope you found that helpful, and it should at least be a good jumping off point so you can understand some of our other Newport News videos a little bit better. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave those below, and I'll respond to them as soon as possible. My contact information is below as well, so you can always just reach out to me directly. My team and I are here waiting to help you purchase a home in Newport News or anywhere else in the surrounding area. Do me a favor and like this video, subscribe to this channel, and then share this video with anyone else you know who may be looking to make a move. My name is David Tortellini. I'm with eXp Realty. Thanks so much for watching.